Hi, I'm Lizzie and I'm a third year chemistry student from Aiden's College and I'm one of your course reps this year.
And hi, I'm Yuii. I'm also one of your course rep this year. I'm currently in my fourth year from Grey College.
We're just going to try and give you some advice when you're starting out on your course as people who have been through it, and we feel like we might have some useful things to tell you.
I feel like we should start with module choices because I feel like that was the thing that I struggled when I was like in my first year and also my second year. Because for first year, like you get two optional modules, and for second year you get one, and so I feel like it's a good place for us to start.
Definitely. So what did you do for your optional modules in first year?
I did molecules in action, and I did a completely irrelevant module in accounting. So that was because I thought, for me, I didn't really want to just have everything that's all just chemistry. I wanted to have something else. So I'm not just like doing chemistry all day, like physical chemistry, organic chemistry, math. So yeah, that's what I did. And then the one piece of advice I can give for molecules in action is that for whoever that's taking the module, just remember to sign up to the essay on time. So there's for molecules in action, there are actually two essays that we had to do, and then they all have like different titles, and they all had like limited number of spaces. So it's basically like a first come first serve kind of like style. And people tend to go for, so there's tend to be like more popular ones compared to the other ones. So if you know like what you want to do, just make sure like you sign up on time. When I was in first year, I did not read the email, like say like when the sign up was, and then I ended up with like the least popular one, and then I logged on like, about like, I don't know, it's probably like half of the next day, next day, and then all the other spaces was gone, and then I left it was like only me and another like two people on the like the least popular choice of essays, and I was freaking out because I didn't know what to do, and I was like, oh, what happened? Like it obviously people are not choosing it, and is it because it's really hard? So
yeah, always check your emails, I guess, is the advice.
So Lizzie, what did you do for your first year optional modules?
I did SMA and SMB, and SMA is like a really popular choice, I think, for a lot of people. There are a lot of chemistry students doing it, and SMB not so much. My advice would be more relevant for SMA. I would say make sure you keep up with it as the year goes on, because there's a lot of content in like that one module. It's like I think 3 lectures a week and tutorials, and it just builds up really fast. And especially because it's a bit different from chemistry, like it's a different skill set. We don't practice maths that much in general in our degree, not complex maths. So I think my main advice would be go over your lecture notes. Don't do what I did and leave it until when I was revising, and then realizing I had 2 modules of maths that I had to try and understand in a couple of weeks, and it was really hard work. So that's what I would say.
I feel like because with the metric module that was optional for no, that was like compulsory.
Compulsory, yeah.
Yeah. How similar, like how much overlap was it from like SMA and the math like component in metric?
There's a bit of overlap. I remember you do complex numbers in both, but there's not a lot. It's a lot more in depth in SMA.
Mm-hmm.
Like in metric, I always felt like most of it you covered at A level.
Yeah.
Or at least a big proportion of it, whereas SMA was like a next step up. It was harder math.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about second year modules then? Do you have any advice for picking those?
I feel like I went on like a wild route because I was like, when I went into second year, I still thought, okay, I don't want to do all chemistry. So my second year optional module, Japanese stage 1, I really wanted to go.
Really?
Yeah, for some reason, like during my second year, I was planning to go to Japan and like all the traveling and stuff like that. So I went for a wild route. I signed up for a language module, which I think is. I think it was really, really interesting. So I was really worried, like I'm not all the like most of the chemistry like second year they'd be choosing, I don't know, computational chemistry, biology.
That's what I did.
Yeah, so and then they'll be choosing like more chemistry related content, whereas me, I did language module, and I thought I was gonna like struggle and with my core modules, but whereas like the struggle wasn't like the content, the struggle was like to fit all my language like seminars in when I had like all the second year labs, because sometimes although they say like all the timetable works out fine, sometimes there was like overlaps with all the lab time and my language like seminar. So I had to, but the department was really, really helpful because they are aware that people taking language modules might have like timetable clash. So I managed to rearrange like my lecture, my lab like group. So I had to do a little bit of more like email and tell them, oh, it overlapped with my.
Yeah.
So the department was definitely really helpful, and then it was really interesting. So yeah.
It sounds it. It's worth bearing in mind, isn't it, that if you pick a module that's not a chemistry module, there might be clashes, especially because we have so many hours.
Yeah.
Like the chances are that some things might clash. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How was computational then?
I think it's a really hard module, personally. It sounds daft, like, because the name is computational chemistry, but I didn't realize when I picked it that meant it was all on computers so much. I don't know. I found it quite difficult. I think it's important to have a group of people that you study with for that module, because the only reason that I could get through the computer labs is because I had friends who were taking that module and we worked on them together. Because I think individually it would be quite a tricky module to get through. I do think it's interesting, but I would like a nice, easy module for their optional module. I would not recommend picking that one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with you, and I feel like it's important to know that like if when you're choosing a module and then like you realize okay you don't actually like the module or enjoying it, it's not like what you expected, you can always like change module within, I think it's like within 1 week or so, like within 3 weeks.
There is a window, yeah, where you can change.
There's a set window, and the like one piece of advice I can give is email Andy Hughes, like the guy that the timetable. If you realize it's not for you, just like email him. He like really quickly sort it out for you. So don't wait until like the Friday of third week where like the deadline is that day, like to change your module. And you're like, oh, actually, I don't want to do this. So
yeah,
there's always like the flexibility, and
there is.
I feel like don't be afraid, like if you're not choosing a module within chemistry, or if you're choosing a module within chemistry and it's like end up, okay, I actually don't like it. So don't be afraid to change, and don't be afraid to look into other options, definitely.
Should we talk about labs then? Because I guess that's a big part of our degree.
With labs, I definitely did not enjoy the paper towel experiment. Do you remember?
Yeah, I'm not sure how differently labs are functioning for first years this year.
Yeah.
But they'll probably do some of the same stuff that we did.
Mm-hmm.
But my main memory is I was really scared in them for like the first term. I found them so stressful. And I don't know why. They don't need to be that stressful.
I feel like it's just like it was first time like for us to come into uni and doing labs, and it's like instead of getting taught like absorbing information, we're actually like there to like do things. I felt like that was the most like scariest part for me. And yeah, I remember like going through Prelabs, having no idea what it is, going to the labs and like demonstrators talking at us and like trying to like absorb all the information, trying to pick my lab partner. And then yeah, I would say one piece of advice I can give with like all the preparation is that make sure like Prelabs are there for a reason. Prelabs are there like for you to understand what is going on, and then do like spend time go through them before the labs, but don't spend like literally like hours and hours on them. It's just to make sure you know slightly what's going on, so when you're going to labs you're actually there to learn, not to like figure out okay why they're doing this, why they're talking about this. So yeah, definitely.
I agree with that, because a lot of the times, even in first year and second year for me, I would do the pre-lab and I'd go to the lab, I wouldn't actually understand why I was doing what I was doing. It was just like I was just following what they said in the booklet to do, and you're not getting the best experience out of it that way. I feel like if you actually put time into understanding the chemistry that's going on, it's more beneficial, and also it makes writing your report 10 times easier at the end.
And it's like, if you have a slight idea of what's going on, and even if you have a lot of questions, like the demonstrators are there, like to like for you to ask questions. More questions you ask, like more stuff that you can put into the like lab report, I'd say. And then
exactly, and you wouldn't know what questions to ask in the lab if you hadn't prepared a bit. And then it's really hard to ask any questions after the lab's over. Like, it's just a lot easier to do it in the lab, really.
Otherwise, walk out the lab and like exhausted, and like, okay, what did I do? What did I not? So definitely. And with lab report, I feel like that's what like stressed me out when I started, like my first year, because I was like, oh, we're gonna write lab report all the time. We're gonna like, and then it's gonna be like really scary because I'm not gonna have any idea what's going on. But then I actually found like more you do it, because we basically do it after every experiment. More you do it, more like confident you become in writing them.
Yeah.
And it's like it's some of the details that they look for to mark your lab report is ridiculous. It's like, oh yeah, for like this word, you have to have like this, you have to write. But then it is very like, it's a lot of hassle, but it is really good practice. And then if you get it right, like when you're in first year, then it's definitely, it helps with like when you go into second year, third year, and with me fourth year, and it definitely gonna help you to gain a lot of more marks in like just losing it, like in like all the slight details. So yeah,
that's true. It's like the little things that make the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Between the marks. I guess another thing that I feel like I should say for labs is that everyone makes mistakes in labs. Don't stress about going in and you do something wrong and you don't get any product one time, because it has happened literally to everyone.
The number of times I dropped my product in a rotary evaporator. I have my fingers not enough to count. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just make sure you know all the correct procedures, and it's okay if you do something wrong. Like, everyone does it. It's not at the end of the day. And they, with all the lab demonstrators, all the technicians, they've gone through so many years of so many students like breaking glassware and doing everything. They'll be fine with it. They actually help you to come up with solutions. And then if you lose your product completely, you have nothing to write up about, just talk to the module leader. Just talk.
It's happened to me before, and they don't mark you down that badly. Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, I've had to write a lab report when I had no product, and it's still doable, and it's still fine. Like, the worst case scenario is not that bad in that situation.
And the worst case scenario is you get a quite low mark for your lab report out of like the 10 lab report that you're writing, out of like a 10 credit module in first year or like second year, third year, which isn't actually that much. So never stress about it, but make sure you do actually put the work in, because small bits do add up. So
if we speak about like what you just said there, the marks in first year, I think a big piece of advice I would have is don't be too worried about your marks in first year. Like, yes, try and get good marks, yes, put the time and effort in, but if you do something and it comes back and you haven't done that well, it doesn't matter. I don't know why, I was just really worried in first year about like the grades and the marks, especially even in the exams at the end of the year. And it just doesn't matter.
What stressed me out the most was the January progress tests, like, because it's really difficult, like all the content that you learn within first term, and then it's like go home for Christmas, it's like, oh, I need to do this, I actually need to understand everything, which I think that really stressed me out. And the fact that, but I wish if I was like, if I had to give a piece of advice to me as a fresher, I wish I knew, like, as long as I put the work in, as long as I'm like on track of what I do, like with my personal revision style, it's actually not that big of a deal. I stressed myself out too much for that test, because it's like, oh, the first ever test when you come into uni. They trying to figure out like how much you know and everything. It was really, really scary, but I feel like as long just put work in, don't stress out that much about it. It's absolutely fine. Like, no one remembers them. So yeah.
No, I've got no idea how I did in this. I can't remember it. But at the time, it felt like a really big deal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That was partly due to how they framed it as a in the course. They built it up to be quite a big deal.
Yeah.
And I remember Andy Hughes talking to us after the results, and his talk stressed a lot of people out because it made it seem so serious. So I think as long as you're aware in the back of your mind that the results aren't the be all and end all for those like progress tests, really.
Yeah, and I feel like if they are purposely doing this so to actually get all the students that's just been partying and not working doing some work for towards the end of the year. So it's good in that way because like it serves as a reminder, but just make sure don't stress yourself out that much about it. Yeah.
How did you find lectures when you first started in first year? How did you find lectures as a way of learning?
I struggled a lot like first year because I feel like I don't know why, but I as a fresher, I thought, okay, if I go into lecture, it's I have to understand everything when I come out of that lecture, or I have to like make sure like I understand everything, which frankly it was a big jump from like A level to uni, and then I was just like I struggled a lot because I was like, oh, if everyone's like understanding the lecture, then why am I not understanding it?
Exactly.
Does it mean that everyone's smarter than me and stuff like that? And then I realized it was only because of like different A levels everyone did. People like did like further math. People did like biology or physics, like along with like chemistry and math, obviously. And I didn't do any of that. I did drama and economics in A level. No idea when after a lecture and I'd be like just talking to all the friends I met in chemistry, I would be like, oh, did you guys understand that? Like I found it really hard to follow, and they'd be like, yeah, it's really easy, you covered it in like for the math or stuff like that, or oh, you covered something like physics, and I was like stressing out. I'd be like, what, I'm so behind, like, it's literally like the second week of the term, like why am I so behind? And I struggled a lot, and then realized by the end of it, the whole point of all the like the how the first year courses and lectures are built is to like bring everyone up to the same level, despite like their different like pre-university background. So yeah, like I found it really difficult, like my first year lectures, but I feel like just to all the freshers, like it's just to make sure don't stress, make sure people know more doesn't mean they are smarter than you, just means they probably did a more relevant A level than you.
Yeah.
So don't stress. And the difference found like the difference between knowledge gaps between people like actually disappear like when you go into second year and third year, because it's like everyone's like up to the same level. So how did you find all the lectures first year?
Well, I did further maths and physics, you know, alongside chemistry and maths. So I'm one of those people that you were saying, but I still found the lectures in first year quite difficult. I don't know if it was the way that we were told information was so different from school, like the lack of like consolidating each step of knowledge, you know, like at school you'd learn something and you'd do some questions on it, whereas here like maybe you'd have a tutorial question on it, but that's probably not. So we just got a lot of information very quickly. Overloaded. And I found it, yeah, it was such an overload, and I found it really hard to like I feel like I didn't know anything. I was just sitting there, I was receiving loads of information, but actually I wasn't actually learning it. So I would, like, my advice would be go over your lectures, because once I started doing that in first year, it all became a lot clearer. But a lot of the time I'd go to a lecture, I wouldn't fully understand it, and then I'd go to the next one, so there was more I didn't understand, and they were just talking about things I didn't know. But once you start like reviewing your content, like at a weekend maybe, like go through the week's lectures, like not spend loads of time on it, but just a little, I think it makes a massive difference.
Yeah, because I feel like it's like a snowball rolling down the hill. Like
exactly.
Less you do, like more, like it's just built up really, really quickly. And I felt like that was such like a put off for me as well, because it's like, oh, I don't understand this. Like for the first 3 lectures of this small module. What's the point of me going? Like, what's the point of going to this? And then I feel like it's such a put off. But then just remember to like try to keep on top and try to go to like actually go to all the lectures, because now with all the freshers, like if everything's online, there's literally no excuse. Sometimes when I was back in like a first year back in college, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be late for this lecture, I'm gonna have to run all the way down, like what is the point? And then it's more of that. But now if everything's online, like try to go to all of them, try to take notes, like even if like in the moment it doesn't like make any sense, but when you actually come back and have gone through like the previous lectures, actually all start making sense. just yeah, I feel like
No, I agree. Like note taking in lectures, I would advise you do that. I guess this year we don't have handouts like you normally would, but if you have access to a printer or if you can make your notes online, like on your lecture handout, often it's those little things that you write down that the lecturer says that aren't on the notes that make you understand it.
That actually, like, it's often like the things that you written down, like when you went through the lectures. When I found out when I come back for revisions, is actually that what I wrote actually helps me to like remember it, to actually help me to do questions, because there's a lot of things that the lecturers don't put it on their handout just to make sure it's not too wordy and everything, but they actually like talk you through, and which I found really, really useful. So yeah.
Do you have any other general advice that you'd want to give, like first year you?
Do you have any? Like, because I can't think of any right now. Like,
yeah, I think my main one would be, don't be worried to like email academics, like email your tutor, email your lecturer. If you don't understand something and you've spoken with your friends and maybe they don't understand it either or they can't help you, that your tutors are there for you to ask them questions. Like they're meant to be helping you. And for some reason in first year, I just didn't do it. Like I wouldn't understand something and I'd be too worried to send an email or be like, can you help me with this? And it took till second year when I was like, actually, I can just email them if I don't understand it, and they will help you most of the time. Like that's what they're there for, and they're really nice about it.
I remember being really worried, like, oh, what happened if I email a lecturer? And then like it turned out to be actually a really dumb question. I was really worried it would make me seem stupid, and that's why I did it. And I felt like they get like tons of questions and they love it when you actually ask questions. And most of the lecturers, like they reply your email really, really quickly when as soon as they have time. So like don't ever be afraid to ask questions. And even if you're not like comfortable with it at the beginning, make sure you get a study group together. Make sure like with all the chemistry students, like some of the chemistry students in your year, make sure like now like just do like, I don't know, do a Zoom meeting and then just go through questions, go through like when you get to the exam period, go through questions, go through like past exam papers, because not all of them has answers. And it's
barely any of them have answers.
Yeah, and then when you do it and you do it, and like, oh yeah, that I don't know if it's right or not, but it must be right if I can do it. I feel like one of the ways, like very helpful way to learn, is to do like study groups and then do study sessions, especially now, like just do it over Zoom and stuff like that. And then when I did it first year, I learned a lot from how like different people approach questions. And then because different people have like their own different strengths, and then you actually do learn a lot from them. And then also just don't be afraid to ask like people from like older years, especially like for like me and Lizzy. Yeah, we're here like as course reps, like we're here to help with any questions that like people would have.
Absolutely, like, make use of all the resources that you have access to, like your peers, the course reps, your lecturers. Like try and use all of it. I guess speaking of resources as well, we should talk about textbooks.
Yeah.
Did you buy the textbooks for your course?
I did. I bought one because I felt they did recommend a lot, like about 3 or 4 textbooks, and then I looked online and looked at like secondhand in Waterstone, and they all turned out to be really, really expensive. So I bought the massive like chemistry, like the one that just says chemistry 4th edition.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know, like it's textbooks. They are really like, they're really there, like helpful when you're like trying to like go through a lecture, but you need a little bit more explanation on like some certain points. And then with that, I feel like it's not very necessary to buy all the textbooks, because you can always like borrow it from the library. So
yeah.
Like just to quickly check a few points, and I feel like it's not very necessary. It's helpful.
Yeah, like I have used my textbooks and they have been helpful, but I haven't used them enough to warrant paying that much money for them, especially when they're available in the library. That would be my advice if like people are wondering whether or not to buy them. Like they're useful to have if you really want them, but you won't be using them all the time.
And I feel like especially during exam season, like those textbooks in library, they just like, it's kind of like, they tend to be very popular, so that you never like, and then even if you do need to buy any of the text, if you feel like you need them, try to look at like, I don't know, Overheard Durham, or like try to look at all the secondhand ones is they usually in very good condition as well, and it's very useful, and then you don't have to spend that much money. And then all the Oxford how do you call them, like the
the Oxford primer ones, yeah, they're often recommended with the course.
Those are, I found those way useful than the textbooks, because some of the lectures are basically like 90% or 80% of them are based on those like primers. So if you ever like struggle or want to go through, like, do first of all check the Bill Bryson if they have them. If they don't, just check like for secondhand, and I found them really, really useful.
Yeah, I think sometimes they're a lot more simple than, like, the big textbooks sometimes can be hard to understand. Like, they're written quite complex, I always think, whereas those primers sometimes put it in terms that's easier to understand. Should we like give some advice for COVID to end? I think my main advice would be try and stick to a working schedule, because so much of it is self-organized this year. It's really easy, I think, to sort of lose how much you're supposed to be doing and when you're supposed to be doing it. And you might get behind. So make a timetable just for yourself. This is what I want to get done today. This is the hours I'm going to do it. And I think that a bit of structure really helps.
Don't forget, like, although you're by yourself doing like all the like or doing all this work in your room, don't forget, like, me and Lizzy, we're here like as course reps and to help. Like, if you've got any more questions or anything like that, women in STEM, like, we do a lot of like events and different things, and with especially with the support scheme that we have on right now, is a great place, great resource for you guys, and then we're always here to help. Yes, sir.
Yeah, any question you want to ask, we're here to answer.
Yeah, hope you do enjoy, like, it's a very difficult time, like, hope you do enjoy your like time in Durham.